White rice. White rice is one of the oldest and most widely consumed carbohydrate sources on the planet, with cultivation dating back over 10,000 years in the Yangtze River Valley of China. It feeds more than half the world's population today. The grain is milled to remove its outer bran and germ layers, leaving behind the starchy white core, which is where nearly all of its carbohydrate content lives. A single cooked cup delivers around 45 grams of carbs. That milling process strips most of its fiber and B vitamins, which is why many countries legally require white rice to be enriched with nutrients like thiamine and iron before it is sold commercially. Wheat bread. Bread made from wheat has been a dietary staple for at least 14,000 years, with the earliest evidence found at a site called Shubeika, one in northeastern Jordan. Ancient Egyptians are largely credited with perfecting leavened bread around 3000 BC using wild yeast to make dough rise. Modern wheat bread gets its structure from gluten, a protein network formed when flour and water are mixed, and it delivers roughly 13 grams of carbohydrates per slice. Whole wheat bread retains the bran and germ layers, offering more fiber and nutrients than white bread. The difference between the two is not just nutritional. Whole wheat has a denser, earthier flavor that many people find more satisfying. Oats were considered a weed for centuries. While wheat and barley were cultivated intentionally across the ancient world, oats grew uninvited in those fields and were mostly dismissed as livestock feed. It was not until around 1000 BC in Europe that farmers began intentionally growing them for human consumption. What changed their reputation was science. Oats contain a soluble fiber called beta-glucan, which has been shown to lower LDL cholesterol and slow the absorption of sugar into the bloodstream. A 100-gram dry serving provides about 66 grams of carbohydrates. That slow digestion is what makes oatmeal feel so filling in the morning. The fiber essentially slows everything down, keeping energy steady rather than spiking it sharply. Potato. The potato was first domesticated roughly 8,000 years ago in the Andes Mountains of what is now Peru and Bolivia, at elevations above 3,800 meters, where almost nothing else would grow. Spanish conquistadors brought it to Europe in the 1570s, and within 2 centuries, it had quietly become one of the most important crops in the world. Ireland's dependence on a single potato variety led to the catastrophic famine of the 1840s, when blight wiped out the entire harvest, killing over 1 million people. A medium-boiled potato contains around 37 grams of carbohydrates. It is also one of the most filling foods per calorie, thanks to a compound called protease inhibitor 2 that signals the brain to slow down hunger. Pasta. Despite its deep association with Italy, pasta likely has roots in both the Arab world and ancient China, with dried noodles in Sicily traced back to Arab settlers in the 12th century AD. Modern durum wheat pasta became standardized in Italy by the 14th century, and Italian law still mandates that commercially sold pasta labeled as Italian must be made from 100% durum wheat semolina, nothing else. Durum wheat has a higher protein and gluten content than regular wheat, which gives pasta its characteristic firm bite when cooked al dente. A 100-gram dry serving delivers around 75 grams of carbohydrates. Pasta's glycemic response is lower than bread, made from the same flour, largely because its dense structure slows digestion. Sweet potato. Sweet potatoes are one of the oldest cultivated vegetables in the world, with evidence of domestication in Peru dating back 8,000 years. What makes them remarkable is how far they traveled before Europeans arrived in the Americas. Archaeological evidence shows sweet potatoes reached Polynesia around 1000 AD, suggesting pre-Columbian contact between South American peoples and Pacific Islanders. A medium-baked sweet potato contains roughly 27 grams of carbohydrates, along with exceptional amounts of beta-carotene, the pigment that gives them that deep orange color and converts to vitamin A in the body. They taste noticeably sweeter than white potatoes because their enzymes convert starches to sugars during cooking, intensifying as heat is applied slowly. Quinoa is technically a seed, not a grain, but it functions exactly like one in the kitchen. It was first cultivated in the Andean region of South America, primarily in present-day Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador, around 3,000 to 5,000 years ago, and the Inca considered it so important they called it the mother of all grains. For centuries, it remained almost entirely unknown outside South America. International interest exploded in the late 2000s, and by 2013, global quinoa prices had tripled, creating economic disruption for Andean farmers, who suddenly could not afford to eat their own staple crop. A cooked cup delivers about 39 grams of carbohydrates, and unlike most plant foods, quinoa contains all 9 essential amino acids. Lentils. Lentils are among the very first crops ever domesticated by humans, with evidence of cultivation in the Near East, around modern-day Syria and Turkey, dating back 11,000 years. They appear in some of the oldest written texts in human history, including the Bible, where Esau famously trades his birthright for a bowl of lentil stew. A cooked cup provides around 40 grams of carbohydrates paired with 18 grams of protein and 16 grams of fiber. A nutritional combination almost unmatched in the plant kingdom. That high fiber content means lentils digest slowly, releasing glucose gradually. They are a dietary cornerstone across South Asia, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean, and they rank among the most affordable protein carb sources available globally. Bananas are the world's most popular fruit and one of the most accessible natural carbohydrate sources humans consume. They were first domesticated in Papua New Guinea around 8000 BC and spread through India, Africa, and eventually the Americas via Portuguese sailors in the 16th century. A medium banana contains about 27 grams of carbohydrates, and what form those carbs take depends entirely on ripeness. Unripe green bananas are high in resistant starch, which behaves more like fiber and feeds gut bacteria. As the banana yellows and sweetens, that starch converts to simple sugars. This is why athletes often prefer ripe bananas before workouts. The sugars are immediately available for energy, requiring almost no digestion. Chickpeas. Chickpeas are one of the earliest cultivated legumes in human history, with archaeological evidence placing their domestication in southeastern Turkey around 7,500 BC. They spread through the Mediterranean and Middle East over millennia and remain a dietary staple across South Asia, North Africa, and the Levant today. A cooked cup provides roughly 45 grams of carbohydrates alongside 15 grams of protein and 12 grams of fiber. They are the base ingredient in both hummus and falafel, two dishes that together are consumed by hundreds of millions of people daily. Their starchy, buttery texture makes them exceptionally versatile. Chickpeas also have a low glycemic index, meaning they raise blood sugar slowly, which is why nutritionists consistently rank them among the most balanced carbohydrate sources available. Corn. Tortilla. The corn tortilla is one of the oldest prepared foods still eaten in exactly the same form today. It dates back at least 12,000 years to Mesoamerica, where indigenous peoples developed a process called nixtamalization, soaking dried corn in an alkaline solution of water and lime, which unlocked nutrients otherwise unavailable to the human body, particularly niacin. Without this process, populations relying heavily on corn develop pellagra, a severe niacin deficiency. A single standard corn tortilla delivers around 12 grams of carbohydrates. The nixtamalization process also changes the texture and flavor dramatically, giving masa its distinctive earthy, slightly tangy character that flour tortillas simply cannot replicate. This technique has been used continuously for thousands of years without meaningful modification. Brown rice. Brown rice is essentially white rice that has not been fully processed. It retains its outer bran layer and germ, which is where most of its fiber, B vitamins, and minerals reside. It has been consumed in Asia for thousands of years, though for much of history, white rice was preferred by those who could afford the milling process, as it cooked faster and lasted longer in storage. A cooked cup of brown rice contains about 46 grams of carbohydrates, nearly the same as white rice, but its higher fiber content means the body absorbs those carbs more slowly. It has a chewier, nuttier character than white rice, and it takes roughly twice as long to cook. In Japan, a diet centered around brown rice rather than white is associated with measurably lower rates of type 2 diabetes. Cassava is a root vegetable native to South America, first domesticated in Brazil around 10,000 years ago, and today it feeds over 800 million people across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, making it the third largest source of carbohydrates in the tropics after rice and maize. A 100-gram serving of boiled cassava delivers roughly 38 grams of carbohydrates, Raw cassava contains naturally occurring cyanogenic compounds that are toxic if consumed without proper preparation. Soaking, fermenting, or cooking destroys them. Cassava flour, also called tapioca in certain forms, has become increasingly popular in Western markets as a gluten-free alternative. It has a mild, slightly starchy flavor and a surprisingly smooth texture when used in baking, making it one of the more functional grain-free carbohydrate substitutes available. Barley is one of the first grains ever cultivated by humans, with evidence of domestication in the Fertile Crescent dating back to at least 10,000 BC, making it roughly as old as agriculture itself. Ancient Egyptians used it to make both bread and beer, and for thousands of years, it was the primary currency used to pay laborers building temples and monuments. Today, it is most commonly used in brewing and animal feed, though pearl barley remains a beloved ingredient in soups and stews across Europe and the Middle East. A cooked cup delivers around 44 grams of carbohydrates with an unusually high beta-glucan fiber content, similar to oats, which contributes to its reputation for supporting heart health and stable blood sugar levels. Dates. Dates are one of the most concentrated natural sources of carbohydrates available, with a single 100-gram serving providing approximately 75 grams of carbs, almost entirely in the form of fructose and glucose. Date palms have been cultivated across the Arabian Peninsula and North Africa for at least 6,000 years, and they appear repeatedly in ancient religious and historical texts including the Bible, the Quran, and early Egyptian records. In pre-refrigeration societies across the Middle East, dried dates served as a critical long-distance travel food because of their extraordinary shelf life. Properly dried dates can last for years. They have a rich, caramel-like sweetness with a chewy, almost candy-like texture, and they remain a cultural centerpiece in Ramadan traditions across the Muslim world, where breaking the fast with a date has been practiced for over 1,400 years.